Hey, guys and gals and non-binary pals, it's Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner,
And I'm purple.
and you are watching episode 154, yes, of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. It's hard to keep track at this point, Victoria. We've done a lot of these now.
Devin, I'm a purple people eater.
And I'm a blue boy. Iron Man 3, best song.
I love that song from Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
It's so
And they
good.
say the MCU doesn't have any memorable music. What are we
Who
doing?
says that?
What are we doing today, Victoria?
They have that song that's like oh no, it's Wonder Woman. Okay, we're gonna be doing the
It's funny because I honestly do think of
Kids
Wonder Woman in my
song.
head roped in more with the MCU than DC
Yeah.
just because it's good.
Um,
The one good DC film.
we are gonna be doing the Odyssey episode of the month, which is Worthy
Mhm.
for August, and A Glass Darkly.
Yeah.
When I read the description for Walkworthy before listening to the beginning of the album 65 episodes, which I didn't do on purpose, so I kind of skimmed it accidentally. I thought it said it was going to be about Jay and Buck being in the Boy Scouts, and I got so excited. And I also saw that Eugene in the picture was the troop leader, and I was like, it's gonna be father-son camping adventures, and they're just like gonna get into all kinds of all kinds of mischief, and it's gonna be beautiful. And Eugene is gonna be doing all these things, and Buck's gonna his mind's gonna be blown. It'll be like all the ice fishing stuff we always talked about.
Uh-huh.
And then Buck would be like, I didn't know you knew how to do this, Mr. Eugene. It'd be so good. And that didn't happen. The exact opposite of that happened. Buck wasn't even there.
He wasn't. I actually did think about the fact that Buck could be in here, but he would be in a different age bracket though, so he'd be in a different troop probably.
I don't care. He could be a junior scout and help Eugene.
So what happens in Walkworthy, Victoria? Episode 845, written by Sam Suxiri.
You know what happens? Nothing that I wanted to happen happened.
You know what? We did get a buddy episode with virtually no imaginative vignettes.
That's true. There's only like 10 seconds of it. And I still like Buddy. Unlike you. You don't like Buddy.
It wasn't bad in this episode.
Oh, okay. Devin's, he's starting
because
to go on.
we were actually hearing the things that were in there. They even pointed out in the web quest how this is the first episode art that's shown Buddy with like real humans around him instead of like the Queen of Hearts and Astrid and an orc.
I'm never gonna go over the fact that Astrid
is just 100% plagiarized pixel for pixel.
Yeah, usually like you change the color of the hair or something, but no. Sorry, if I don't pet my dog, she's gonna start barking for the next 10 years. She's gonna get this crazy look in her eyes that says, fight me.
She's finally gonna let it all out.
Yeah.
The last 13 years. She's been holding
it in. She might be bleeding a little bit. What were we doing?
Walkworthy, what happens in it?
In this episode, sorry, she is swarming around me like a piranha. I'm just gonna put her on my lap so she stops. Everyone wait 5 seconds. Yes, she is bleeding. Okay.
I get you.
I'm gonna deal with this.
I know she can't hear me because you have headphones in.
So in this episode, we have Buddy and Jay, and they join not the Boy Scouts, like the Wood Tribe or whatever they call themselves, whatever no-name brand Boy Scouts they are. Jay steals comic books. I didn't like that
I'm not surprised.
That made me upset. They were also very mean to to a man with a handicap.
I
Very
know.
mean. That was upsetting, like, to his face. They have, like, this mean nickname for him, and they called him that to his face, and I was like, what the heck?
The thing that was even worse was in the discussion questions for the episode. They're like, how do you think they could have given him a hand? I mean, helped him out. And I was like, wow. That was kind of ableist.
That was kind of horrible.
And the discussion questions are like, let's still jab in a little, make fun of this disabled veteran.
He was really nice.
Yes. I don't know why everyone was scared of him.
Yeah, he was so nice. He's just like, hey, buddy, oh, you're in the Boy Scouts? That's, like, super cool. Also, we're both fans of comic books, and we have all these things in common. You want to talk comic book stuff with me? And I was like, man, I wish I had neighbors like this. Not that my neighbors are bad or anything. It's just he sounds like a fun guy.
It wasn't even like he's like, oh, I'm super grumpy, but I have a heart of gold inside. It was just he was super outwardly nice, and in reality was also super nice.
Yeah, it's kind of like the
Home Alone one.
Home Alone neighbor. Yeah.
I was also thinking of it was funny because I listened to this episode immediately after watching Bloodfest, and there's a whole like famous classic horror movie character they talk about in that movie called the Arborist, and he's like a serial killer themed around like pruning shears and like tree trimming and like gardening equipment and stuff. So when they're like, he's like, Jay's like, he chops off the arms of kids with his pruning shears and stuff, and I watched that heard that right after watching the movie. So I was like, oh wow, it's like connection. That means nothing to nobody.
It's so horrible, though. He was like, he chops off little kids' arms because he wants to find one that fits, but they're little kid arms, so they never fit. And Buddy's like, then why not do a different size arm? It's like, he can't, because he's dumb. And I'm like, oh, now he's dumb too. Thanks for adding that on to that. Anyway, yeah, Buddy he like is a fan of this comic book series, and he wants to go to the places where they film.
I almost say Captain Spliff. That's a different thing.
But he hasn't seen the light of day in 20 years. So his father's like, my goodness, child, you are so pasty. I thought you were wallpaper and almost just walked into you. That joke didn't work at all. Let me try again. Oh, Buddy, get outside. I'm tired of looking at you and your weird hallucinations. You've run down the stairs 6 times in the past day because you thought it was a dungeon leading to a dragon. That didn't work either. We're just gonna
move on. Okay, editor, can you cut that?
Editor, who's the editor?
Okay. Yeah, okay, I got the thumbs up.
I'm gonna name our editor Dale.
Yeah.
He has to be somewhere, so why not work for us? Yeah, so then there's this pasty, sickly child, and Buddy's also there. And so the dad's like, Buddy, the last time you were outside was that snow episode, because we have continuity in the OAC now. And I'm like, heck yeah.
I mean, Sir Buddy's Snowy Day was an album episode. But...
Oh, okay, I wasn't 100% sure. I can remember. It felt like an OAC episode. And his dad was like, you're so pasty and pale from your lack of being outside. We couldn't find you. In the blizzard that happened, you almost froze to death. Okay,
Victoria, moving along from the episode summary, getting past the first scene.
No. That's just going to be the rest of this episode. And so he's like, join the Wood Scouts. That's camp. Never mind. Anyway, so he joins the Wood people.
That's 2 consecutive episodes. We've not only talked about camp, but specifically talked about the Wood Scouts.
And so he joins them, Wood folk, and he finds Jay there, and Eugene's the troop leader, and him and Jay turn out to have all these things in common. I'm like, yay, we're not talking about Zoe with Jay and Buddy.
They hit it off surprisingly well.
They got along very well, considering when Jay first saw Buddy. He was like, "You're that guy who tried to murder me at Christmas." And yeah, and then they became best friends, and Jay told him about how horrible disabled people without arms are, especially the one who's Buddy's neighbor. And Buddy's like, "Oh my gosh, I know, right?" And then he also says, like, "Also, I steal from that guy on a regular basis."
You
and
mean for
Buddy's
Mr.
like,
Mezzo?
yeah, but that guy was working there.
Well, he didn't know
Like,
that.
he was filling in. Yeah, I know, but still.
Still.
And then Buddy's like, "Oh, that's not as cool." And then everything works out because he tells that guy and they become friends. And Buddy is tasked with teaching Jay how to become a good wood boy. How to become Pinocchio. He's Pinocchio! Devin, he has to become a good wood boy and he's Pinocchio.
Yep.
He's already halfway there.
Yep. So yeah, and also there was a whole thing where like Buddy gets this disillusionment in the nature of like promises and hypocrisy of like the oath and commitment to doing right and stuff like that. It's kind of the body of the episode.
When Eugene was like, "This is our oath for our wood elves," and then he like said their thing. He's like, "You don't have to say it until you're comfortable and understand it, Buddy." I'm like, this is like communion, but if it was for Wood Scouts.
And more nationalistic.
That too, but they did mention God.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they're very clear about that in the thing. The video documentary was all about trail life.
That's what it's called.
Yes.
Okay, so I liked that motto that they had for Extra Life. I thought it was pretty good for the kids, because it was for the kids, and the kids done good. Except for Jay. Jay was a bad wood boy. Bad Pinocchio.
So we had a Buddy episode, and they actually managed to like keep us tied down almost the entire time in the real world, which was good. It was much more balanced in terms of runtime than the other ones with him have been so far. More akin to like a Jack Davis or Called On in Class sort of thing.
I mean, there was like one scene, wasn't there?
He did revisit at least twice, maybe 3 times, the Captain's Spiff.
Oh.
Reverie.
I forgot about the other times.
So, yeah, like you said, they make multiple references to Sir Buddy's snowy day. Buddy's dad also says that it's spring right now, which I find a little odd given that this is an August episode and is the AIOC, so it's not going to release like on album or on radio any other time. It is specifically and exclusively an August episode. And
she's squirming, but she's also bleeding.
They could have... All right, Victoria. They could have just as easily said that it was August or that it was summer in the episode instead of spring. I don't know. So, Buddy...
They could have said, like, now that the snow's finally melted, we can go hiking.
Implying that the snow didn't melt until August in Odyssey?
No, you said it's spring in this episode.
Well, yeah, and I'm saying that's weird. Because it's August.
It doesn't mean it's August in Odyssey.
Yeah, apparently not, which is strange. They usually try and tie things closer together in the year, and they could have done that. They had no reason to mismatch the times like that. So, Buddy is all into super sci-fi stuff, which we knew about already, and he gives us more, more parodies of things and such, as Odyssey is wont to do. And it was like the interesting thing about naming films, like saying like, oh, that was in Edge Runner is the one that he gives.
Yeah, Blade Runner.
The fact
Edge of Tomorrow and Blade Runner?
I think it was just.
What it is?
I think it was just Blade Runner. It might have been Edge of Tomorrow, but they were
I
talking
don't know
about
what
like
Edge of Tomorrow's about.
Wait,
is that the one that's like started off as the manga and it has like Tom Cruise and Time Repeats?
I think so, yeah.
Okay,
The one that
yeah,
they changed,
I want to watch that.
The one that they changed the title of on when it came out,
And they
because
changed
it was so unpopular that they're like, we'll change the title on the full release, and people won't know it's the same movie.
And they also changed everything else from the manga. Like, the characters were like teenagers, and then they're like, "Oh, we want to do Tom Cruise. We're gonna make him a fully fledged adult," and everyone else.
Yeah, he's in his 50s, I believe, but we can make him a teenager, right?
No, the manga came first.
Yeah, no, I know, that's what I mean. I mean, like, they're like, we'll cast Tom Cruise. He's a teenage-ish, right? That's what teenagers look like.
I mean, he's like forever young to the powers of Scientology and aliens.
50-year-old man. The interesting thing is when they're like, oh yeah, Edge Runner is a thing that exists in AIO. That doesn't preclude the fact that Blade Runner could also exist in AIO, because even though as I've said before, even though we're abundantly aware of the existence of Star Wars in universe, we also have at least one.
Do you think it's like, what's that film company called? Is it like Apocalypse?
The ones that make the knockoff.
Yeah, it's Apocalypse.
Ones?
So you think like there's an Apocalypse equivalent in Odyssey?
That's exactly what I'm imagining, because we know that Star Wars exists in canon. We talked about it a bazillion times in the show. But we know we also have at least one knockoff film in the form of whatever they were talking about at the beginning of Chores No More. So,
yeah,
Syndulla, the Ice Princess, is your sister. So even though they're
my gosh,
even though they're like Edge Runner, that doesn't mean that Blade Runner isn't also a thing, which just makes things confusing. So, Buddy joins Trail Life at the heat of his father, and he actually becomes friends with Jay, and they actually hit it off really well over their shared love of comics.
Hey, Devin,
and he mentions
Elvis Oregon
too.
Trail. Oh wait, no, they're in Ohio. Never mind.
So here's something that's fun to think about, Victoria. You talked about your excitement when you saw that Eugene was the leader of this troop. And when I found out that Eugene was the den mother here, I thought it was maybe a bit odd for a group that's apparently so focused on physical exercise. But I was like, now that I think about it, I really love the image of Eugene being able to share all these like really weird, maybe not child appropriate skills that he picked up while running from Andromeda. Like,
oh no,
kids, today we're going to learn about assembling radio transmitters, checking parachute integrity.
Out of microwaves.
And the best way to conduct covert operations in northeastern Africa.
We're going to learn how to find our parents that abandoned us.
Here's the best way to
running into homeless shelters and screaming things at them. It'll work out, just maybe not right at
Here's
first.
how we attach a lawnmower engine to a skateboard and run it through oncoming traffic.
Hey kids, do your parents ever tell you that like, I'm on a diet later. And they need to lose some weight?
Here's how you take a car battery and attach it to your fridge. Help your parents lower their cholesterol.
Have you ever been like, oh man, I have to do chores and I have to clean the bathtub. It's going to take forever.
And I can speed it up and also help re-varnish your dad's oak desk in the floor underneath simultaneously. So speaking of, Eugene has no concerns about painting the surfaces of public benches with paint, which is burning and toxic to the touch.
Yeah. And then like... Okay, everyone stop listening if you haven't listened to the Album 65 finale for like...
Okay, put your hand up while you're talking about spoilers.
Okay.
So that people on screen know and can visually see.
Now.
Close in front of your face in case the split screen cuts it off. There you go.
Okay, so, Album 65 finale, there's this bit where Eugene's like, I'm an unfit parent because I do dangerous things, and then I listened to this episode, like, right after that, and I'm like, literally, that was the next episode I listened to, and I was just like, oh my gosh. He was like, I didn't realize I was an unfit parent because I do dangerous things for my baby boy, and I was like, oh, you didn't? How did... And then you go and do this. And he's like, I'm still learning. And Buck's like, but God's going to help you learn how to do better. And I'm like, hurry up. Get rid of all these toxic paint chemicals.
Okay, put your hand down.
Okay.
And it's funny.
I'm right, aren't I?
You are, and the best part is I listened to Walkworthy first, so I didn't even make that connection until reading it just now. Um, but that's a whole thing to talk about next time. So, yeah, Eugene's like, oh, yeah, just don't let any of this paint touch your skin. I'm like, you're painting public benches with it. Even if it's just like this when it's wet, you still can't use like toluene or something like that as your paint solvent, especially when you're handing it out to a bunch of kids, Eugene.
It's it's not good. Not good, very bad. I like that, like, anyone who hasn't listened to the album 65 finale, when they get there, they're gonna know what I'm talking about now. They're gonna get to something, they're gonna be like, oh, yeah, that makes
Yeah, I think
sense.
it'll be pretty obvious, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jay and Buddy, they're both doing their thing, and they're going along, and it's going surprisingly well. And I was like, wow, Jay is like, he's actually doing really good with this, and I was very impressed with Jay. And he was on such a roll there. And then combo breaker. And you know, the thing that annoyed me is Buddy could have just returned the comic book and like tipped off WikiLeaked. He could have Edward Snowden the lock being broken without having to turn himself in for something that he really did not do. Unless there was like a gap where he was like, I am going to keep this comic book, and then he decided not to afterwards, which I think might have happened because he like gave up his faith in humanity. It probably happened because
he seemed pretty guilty about it.
Yeah. That's what I was confused about. I was like, you could just take in the comic book, gone and say like, hey, this came into my possession and should go back to you. Also fix the lock on your door, without saying like, I stole this. Like, you didn't, no one had to take the fall there. This isn't national treasure. But yeah, I guess because it sounds like maybe he did have a period where he was like, I am going to keep this. The world is trash and evil and everyone's a liar and it's all fake. So
I'm gonna make a YouTube video about this and complain about everything.
Yeah. So he turns himself in, and then Jay gets caught, and then they're both caught. And then he's like, well, I guess you have to help out old Mr. Hendelman to pay off your debt, buddy. And like you said, the old guy was pretty cool. I would have to say, though, I would be a fan of this old man if he wasn't, like, disparaging kids these days, like, every other sentence.
Yeah, when Buddy was just like, yeah, I was just like, Buddy's doing the same thing I would do. Like, the way Buddy read his line afterwards, he's like, yeah, I know, right? And I was like, yeah, it's just going.
Oh, yes, I'm well familiar with like, yeah, I'll kind of passively go along with this because I don't want to get into this right now.
I don't want to talk about this. I have other things to do today.
Just the other day, I read the passage where Paul was getting angry at old people who rag on kids these days for being lazy and sinful when they're all exactly the same as they were and have always been throughout all of history. And I think it was in Romans or in the beginning of 1 Corinthians. And I was like, just read your Bible, old man. Stop being condescending. Yeah.
I try not to ever do that since I work with kids. I try never to be like, do any of you guys know what this thing is, or like what this thing is? Although
except for the Daffy Duck thing, that's
like,
ludicrous.
Genuinely, what?
Except for Nathan not knowing who Daffy Duck is, that's ludicrous.
Yeah. But there was one time where we were reading a book and it mentioned Charlotte's Web, and I was like, I need to know. I need to know that they know what Charlotte's Web is. It's really important to me. Some of them did, most of them did not. But they were also like, this was ages like 3 to 8, basically.
Yeah.
So they have time.
That's not like Charlotte's Web was a new book when we were young.
I mean, that's true.
And
lots of them were like, I've seen the animated movie, and I was like, high five, child.
Yeah.
You're doing great.
You are perfectly justified, obviously, in disparaging them about, like, the Paul brothers, but, you know, that's not because of them being young in YouTube culture. That's just because those two are terrible human beings.
I wanted to follow up the Charlotte's Web question by being like, now have any of you guys seen the sequel with that one black sheep and that wolf? But I did not ask. I wanted to, though, so badly.
So we have the video documentary for this. Like I said, it basically just talks about trail life, and the video consists of going fishing with the troop and talking about what the group is. The web quest contains a coloring page for the trail life mascots, who are the most blatantly furry and scaly anthro mascots I've ever seen for a brand in my life.
Them.
We'll look them up then on the AIOC or on Google, whatever. But I was like, oh, that's a thing.
What are they called? Trail Life?
Trail Life USA. The interesting thing that I learned from it, though, in here is that many troop numbers for Trail Life are actually verse references, and they were like including the one in this episode. So go back and listen to it. So I did go back and listen to it.
These are frightening.
In the episode, they are Troop 987, which would have to be Psalm 98:7, which is, "Let the sea resound and everything in it, the world and all who live in it." So they're focusing on nature reflecting the glory of God and singing out his praises. So that's cool. It was a neat little Easter egg.
Mm-hmm.
At first, when I heard 987, I interpreted that as chapter 9, verse 87. And I was like, how many chapters are there that have 87 verses in them? And then finally I was like, oh, it's Psalm,
Chapter
Psalm
8,
90.
verse 7?
I was like, no, it's Psalm 98.
Oh.
It's 98:7, not 987. So, yeah, that's the episode. Buddy wasn't terrible. Jay was like, eh. It was a good lesson, though.
Jay was okay in it.
I like how they make this point about understanding, like, why we make commitments to, like, you know, a set of rules, specifically to scripture. Why it's important that we make these commitments while still realizing that we aren't, in our humanness, going to be able to live up to them, and yet we still claim them because that is to what we are aspiring, that is what we're reaching for. And so we're calling them out, you know, as goals that we set for ourselves, the thing that we're looking up to and working towards. And that's why it can seem like hypocrisy, and it is if we're not, you know, if we are not vying towards that finish line. But understanding like how that works. Sorry?
I said sorry, I'm distracted. She keeps on growling at me.
So yeah, I thought that was a good lesson.
I thought this episode was like between good and okay. Like, yeah, I don't really have that much to say about it. I didn't think Jay was that bad in the episode.
No, he wasn't. Like I said,
the whole shoplifting thing, and also making fun of disabled people thing.
Yeah.
I was like, other than those two things,
that is arguably
which are pretty big,
arguably the worst between the two.
But I thought Buddy was good in it.
I have to say though, like,
I think this is the best Buddy episode so far.
Yeah, I think so, probably. And Jay being Jay, I think I'm still impressed with him, because at a baseline level, if there's like comic books that he can get at that aren't out yet, and that he already pays money to the store for other things regularly, I would expect that he is probably going to nick a few advance copies every once in a while. And so, you know, that being the neutral case, that being our null hypothesis, everything else that he did with Trail Life and the rest of this stuff, I felt was an upward movement personally, as far as Jay goes against the past. So I was still like, I feel like it's still an upward movement overall.
Yeah,
all things
I
being
hope
equal.
that there's actually more episodes with this and
That's not going to happen.
And Buddy,
especially since it's
and Jay bonding.
A real organization.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing, though. It's gonna be basically. See, the thing that bothers me about this episode is it's gonna have as much an impact as the episode with Riley and Jay did.
Mm-hmm.
Which Yeah, that episode had the exact same ending. It was just like, hey Jay, I'm gonna help you with this one thing. And we're definitely gonna do it.
Does this
and then
mean
Riley
Buddy is
was
now
never seen again.
Yeah, Buddy is now being cursed to disappear from the show.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
He has the black spot now.
Yep.
Well, rest in peace. Rest in peace, Leonard Norman. This show cannot tolerate any characters.
It was a pretty good episode. Last good episode for Buddy.
We all know that on Adventures in Odyssey, no character can last long if their first name is Leonard.
Yep.
Rest in pieces.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Goodbye, Buddy. Too bad you never became Devin's buddy.
No, as far as the Leonards on this show go, I think I've shown a clear preference. So, that
was my Andre Stoica impersonation.
Oh,
It's completely unrelated.
Ooh, Odyssey.
Oh my gosh, in my recommendeds today on YouTube,
Uh-huh.
do you remember the Book of Pooh movie?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw the opening song for that, and then I saw a bird fly across the screen, and I threw my arms up in the air like a bluebird, and I yelled, Cassie! And I was like, how did I forget about Cassie? And then I felt really bad for like a solid 2 minutes, and I completely forgot about that until this moment.
You should be ashamed of yourself, Victoria.
I know.
Disgraceful. So.
You didn't remember what her name was.
No, absolutely not. I'm still not even entirely clear on who you're talking about. I assume it's a character from the Book of Pooh.
Yes, but only in that.
Yes.
Nothing else.
Don't worry, I'm sure she'll have a post-credit scene in the new live-action Saving Christopher Robin movie.
I hope so.
So that'll be her, like,
She
Nick
deserves
Fury
it.
scene in the end, post-credits. I'm gonna give this episode 3.9 out of 5. Now, the key change there in the middle will throw you off.
I'm gonna give it a 3.5. I think it was pretty good.
Yeah, like you said, it was one of those episodes. It's like it was solidly okay, maybe a little bit north of okay. Yeah. So, now let's blast from the past
into the future of the Imagination Station in space.
What?
Are we doing Glass Darkly now?
Yes.
Oh, is that the one on the Imagination
Yes.
Station? See, this is why I need to listen to it. I always get those two episodes mixed up.
Yes, evidently.
I always listen to them together, which doesn't help
Let's
either.
think on these things.
I always listen to them together so I can be like, there, I did it. I don't have to listen to them again for like at least 3
What about
or
Faster Than a
so
Speeding
years.
Ticket? Way back in album 31.
That one doesn't count because I actually like that one, and the only downside is he's in it, but like he's not bad in it.
He is, though, like, just as.
Wait, what happens in that one on Trent's side?
It's not Trent. This is way pre-Trent. This is Cody.
Is it Jared?
It's Cody.
Oh, Cody.
Yeah.
What does he do to Cody?
Cody has a test that isn't his, but it has his name on it, and he's trying to convince Dr. Hawthorne that this wasn't his test, and Dr. Hawthorne will not accept it, even though Cody has all these things to prove it, and he just doesn't even want to hear him out at all, won't even let him speak about justifying the fact that someone mislabeled his test.
Oh man, I'm really glad I don't remember
Until
that.
it's finally the TA comes forward, and she's like, yeah, no, this isn't Cody's test, and it's like, okay, I believe you.
Okay, I believe you.
Yeah. So, let's talk about
I do not like Dr. Hawthorne.
I know. He is a terrible man.
I don't know why, but like just mentally picturing him, I imagine he looks like Gabriel Agreste, which is not fair for Gabriel Agreste. But
true.
Gabriel Agreste is also a horrible person.
How dare you disrespect Hawkmoth like this?
How dare you disrespect a man who possesses people with evil butterflies
And puts his son in mortal peril.
on a regular basis, knowing that it's his son.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about A Glass Darkly. And we're back now a day later to talk about episode 558, A Glass Darkly, written by John Fornoff and Nathan Hubler. What happens in this episode, Victoria?
So in this episode, the main plot is with Trent and Mr. Hawthorne, and Trent gets the opportunity to audition to be a cellist in this,
Philharmonic.
in a Philharmonic orchestra in Odyssey. And it's like a really, really rare opportunity. Only 4 people are chosen every year to be able to audition and join. And Trent has the opportunity to do it. And but every single time he gets the chance, for reasons that are not his fault, he ends up being put in detention, and he's unable to actually go to the auditions. And in the end, he isn't able to audition at all. And Whit talks to him and tells him about God's will, and they talk about that and stuff, and Trent doesn't really understand why he couldn't get in. And it turns out because of some things that happened, he actually ended up saving someone's life, but he wasn't aware of it. And then in the other plot, we have the Washingtons had a crappy old vacuum, and Martin was supposed to get rid of it. And then Bart bought it off of him, and Whit got it in like a really stupid contest at the Electric Palace. And then he was just going to throw it away. And then Wooten was like, "Can I take it?" And then he made it into this really cool riding vacuum for Martin.
Marvin.
And it all worked out. Marvin. That's what I meant. He's not the evil brother from Secret in Him 2.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and it's like that verse from the Bible where it's like, we only see... Is that a verse from the Bible?
Yeah, it's 1 Corinthians 13, Victoria.
Yeah. Okay, sorry.
It's like maybe the most famous chapter in the Bible.
I was at work when I was listening to this episode, so I was kind of... I guess I missed those 3 seconds. Sorry about that.
And also having read, like, literally the most quoted chapter in the entirety of Scripture.
So, it's at verses like, we only see through a glass darkly, about all those things going on, to paraphrase. And God doesn't. Yeah. That is the plot. Hot take, Devin?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't listened to this episode in a very long time, but I listened to it today. I thought it actually wasn't that bad.
Yeah, no, I mean, we do rag on a lot, and not because it's a bad episode. I've never, as much as we've complained about it, never once in my life have I thought that this was a bad episode. It's just emotionally frustrating to me. And for reasons that are good, like because the episode is good and because it makes a good point, but that still doesn't make me not happy about it. To be concise, the reason this episode gets under my skin so deeply is that there's, for me personally, there is nothing that makes me angrier than injustice in like every different form on every level. And usually that mostly covers being passionate about like social justice and racism, misogyny, transphobia, homophobia, police brutality, income disparity, classism, homelessness, and stuff like that. But it also covers all the way down to simple things like stories in media, whether it's serious issues like power abuse or an unwrongful imprisonment in like Orange is the New Black, something serious like that, or something mundane like Trent not being able to be in the orchestra because Dr. Hawthorne refuses to hear him out, and being unduly punished for doing something wrong. This episode also mixes it with like the second worst and most annoying thing in media, a simple failure of communication, which makes it even worse. It's the second worst thing in media behind drawn-out amnesia plots. For me, personally.
Yeah, the injustice was and is the thing that always bothers me. It wouldn't bother me as much if Trent did find out that Dr. Hawthorne was like deathly allergic.
One of them, if at least one of them knew what had happened.
But No, I understand why he didn't and stuff. I kind of like that neither of them know in a way,
Yeah, that's
because this episode like always has always stuck with me, and like the moral behind it, just because of how strong the ending is, in that it does not give you anything that you want.
I know, and that's what I mean about why it's weird. That's why I don't like dislike the episode for what it is, because the ending is important. It's true to life, and it's a good thing for people to realize that that does happen, and that is the way that the episode should have ended. I definitely think. I find it frustrating and annoying that that is a thing that happens, but I recognize that it does, and that it is good for people to know that those things still happen and good things still come out of it, even when you never know about it. That person never knows about it. It still happens. That's the point. It's an excellent point, but I still hate to see it actually happen like this, because it's frustrating for us to know about it, but no one else. So that's the weird thing, where it's like, I don't fault the episode at all. I think it's a good episode, and it's good that they did that, but I still just get frustrated for it while acknowledging that that was the right thing to do. You know?
Yeah. I kind of have like the same feelings. I don't know. I think I like this one more than Worst Day Ever, but I kind of get the same like feeling when I leave the episode
It's very similar,
after listening to this one and Worst Day Ever, where I'm just like really emotionally drained.
These two are a pair in my mind, yeah.
Yeah, cause and also a change of heart, cause that one just like no, like all three of those episodes, these just episodes upset me. Like I can't even say that
Why a change of heart?
they're all written badly. Just because I don't know.
The plot has no similarities with the regards that we said.
I get the same feelings from listening to them. Where like I'm upset, but yeah,
Okay.
I don't know.
So yeah, and then there's also the vacuum thing. I completely forget about the vacuum aspect of this story
I
every
really
time.
liked the vacuum subplot.
And
I
it's
really
funny because
enjoyed
it's
it.
like it's the album art, and yet I still forget that it's this episode every time.
Oh man, that is the album art. I always forget
I know.
about that.
I my
I always think that it's just a random thing.
my favorite part about it is Marvin's incredulence at Bart's continual inability to remember his name. It's me, Marvin.
I'm your neighbor.
Your neighbor. See you around, kid. Of course you will. I'm your neighbor.
Very
You're
good.
so frustrated. And then Wooten comes in. And, you know,
It was so weird to hear pre-married Wooten. It's been such a long time since I've listened to an episode like post-hiatus with Wooten in it.
Here's the thing. Here's my hot take. Wooten talks a big plant game, but the line, I never thought I'd see a dicotyledonous plant in this part of town, is patently ridiculous. That would be like walking into McAllister Park and saying, wow, they have grass here? Who would have thunk it? Like,
I don't know what dicotyledonous is.
dicots cover just about every flowering plant that you see that isn't grass.
Oh,
including,
right. I repressed all this in biology.
Including, probably, I would think, every single deciduous tree that would grow in that part of the country. The only deciduous tree I can think of off the top of my head that isn't one is a banana tree. So
maybe they have like a weird law against deciduous plants in that part of town, and that's why we brought it up.
It's only pine trees. But any flowers would also. No, I guess most flowers. No, it goes back and forth depending on them. Roses would be dicotyledonous.
Isn't it like however many petals? Like
that
if
is
it's
one
an
of the
increment of
characteristics. That is one of the characteristics. Whether it's groups
oh,
of
all this repressed biology stuff is coming
groups of
back
three,
to
or
me.
groups of 4 or 5, or multiples thereof for aspects of the flower, such as petals and sepals and stuff. But yeah, like I say that Wooten likes to talk a big plant game because this is not the first time he's talked about dicots. In my grade 12 biology class, our teacher asked the class, like at the beginning of the unit, before any of us would have any reason to know, at the beginning of the section, he asked if we knew what the 2 types of angiosperms were, and I guessed monocotyledonous and dicotyledonous correctly, solely based on Wooten's line in BTV Behind the Scenes about okra. It like came to me in that moment when he asked that question. I was like, and I put my hand up. because I was like dicotyledonous, and the other one obviously would be monocotyledonous then if that was the case, and it was correct, and I was like, cool, thank you, BTV.
And who says we don't learn anything from media?
I know.
I've been able to answer questions about army stuff in classes because of Red versus Blue. Like, you can learn anything from anything.
On the topic of Wooten, though, and I will address this in the next review, I was like, because I hadn't listened to Not What I Expected when I wrote this, but I was like, I'm very concerned about Wooten's line about his mail route taking him through the zoo, because the zoo isn't in Odyssey, it's in Connellsville, which does not sound like a very efficient route unless Wooten's using some sort of hyperbolic non-Euclidean bending spacetime sort of thing. And then I found out...
Hey. The Barclays go to a zoo.
Yeah, I know, and that's how I know it's in Connellsville, because they say it in that episode.
Darn it.
Yeah.
Give me points for remembering to go to a zoo.
I mean, I did literally say it last night. I said the zoo in Connellsville is mentioned in our best vacation ever. I said that 24 hours ago.
That. I remember you said Connellsville. I didn't remember what episode you were talking about.
Yeah, I wrote this, and I was like, this is the only time they mentioned a zoo in Odyssey. And then literally the next episode I listened to was the second time they've ever mentioned a zoo being in Odyssey. And I was like, what are the odds? But that's next time, yeah. So, moving on with that storyline, Vacuum goes from Marvin to Bart, and then Bart takes it to the Electric Palace. Honestly, I think that this win a free appliance thing is my favorite scam that Bart's ever run, because...
I knew you were going to make a comment about how much you love this part. It was very good.
Because I imagine most people didn't really know or care about it until it was already happening, and they're like, well, I'm already standing here, I might as well see what's going on.
Like, the applause, there were like two people clapped, and everyone else, you could just hear him like walking by.
Well, it's great because Whit seemed basically not even aware of it. He wasn't put out in any...
No, I don't think he was aware of it at all.
Yeah, he wasn't aware of it. He wasn't put out in any way to win it. And the prize was just that he got something to go throw away somewhere. So while Bart is being an irritating nuisance on the community as per usual, the actual consequences upon Whit are almost nothing. Like, normally getting wrapped up in one of Bart's schemes like this would be like taxing or annoying in some way, but Whit's just on his way out of the building. Then, you've won this contest, you get a broken vacuum, like up and back down where you started, and he's walking out of the building 60 seconds later than he would have otherwise. Just like, all right, did that, like, there's something so comical to me about how fast it all happens. Like, if Whit didn't physically bring the vacuum out of the building with him, I feel like he would have walked out and 30 seconds later been like, did that happen, or did I just, like, daydream that? Like, was that even real? Like, it's so weird.
I love
so
that he
fast.
only had 3 seconds to choose. And I was thinking, like, could you imagine if he actually did have something, like, that he knew very specifically that he wanted? And Bart's like, okay, you have to choose some. I want a microwave.
That would have been great, yeah.
And then it's just like, and Bart's like, but you need to say the model number in under 3 seconds. And then Whit says it really quickly. He's like, oh, no, it needed to be in the 3 seconds. Take this vacuum.
Yeah.
And I like to think that it wasn't even an actual draw. He was just like, I bet lots of people will be really angry if I give them a broken vacuum, but Whit will actually take it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it was Whit.
Speaking of the Rathbones and their schemes, you know, I've listened to this episode a number of times before. I never really questioned previously
how Rodney got the bees.
Where precisely Rodney acquired a jar of live bees. Like, at least if this was Jay...
I've always wondered about that.
At least if this was Jay, I just wouldn't question it.
Yeah.
My best guess is that Rodney won it in a rigged contest at the Electric Palace, and the prize was just a jar of bees.
Isn't that like something you can buy from Fantasy Costco? There's like a jar of bees description. It's a jar of bees.
Better than like the Olive Garden gift certificate.
That wasn't at Fantasy Costco.
Yeah, that was in the original batch of Fantasy Costco items.
Oh my god, that's so good.
And it had an expiry date on it too, and they were like, that makes this like it just keeps getting worse. So I will say this against Trent. After opening the car, you know, he shoots all the bees out. Good on him. He did still hit someone's car with the textbook. It was inside, I realized for the first time ever, like he was inside the car, but he did like whap the textbook down. The bee had already stung him. At that point, its stinger is gone.
Yeah, that's
Not
what I was thinking. And then he got stung, and I was thinking, okay, yeah, because I remember Mr. Hawthorne, because I haven't listened to this in a very long time, said that there was a dead bee, so that must be how it was killed. And then you hear it like get hit, and it's still like buzzing and stuff, and I'm like, how is it still alive?
Not only could Trent have left it and it would have died because it had already stung, but
if I was Trent, I probably would have hit it too. I wouldn't have wanted to take any risks.
He also could have just grabbed it with his fingers and just
I don't think he's that agile. I mean, he does have those good cello fingers, but
those good piccolo fingers,
yeah.
really quick fingers.
Yeah, and Trent was like, I don't play the piccolo. I was like, why do you sound so insulted? I play the piccolo, you jerk. Although I understand being frustrated with, like, no one ever gets it right.
Well, it's not just getting it right. I mean, you can't get more wrong on the scale of instruments between a cello and a piccolo. Like, I can't think of a further instrument from a cello.
You know what bothers me out of like all the bits with Mr. Hawthorne the most? What? Also, I bet he was named after Nathaniel Hawthorne, who apparently no one likes at all. Like, not Nathan, not Justin McElroy. Because that's like a thing he mentions in Taz a bunch of times.
Oh, yeah. I was sorry. I was like, he's an author, right? But I was
he writes the Scarlet Letter.
Yeah. Well, I thought he was an author.
Yeah, I know, because Bungo Stray Dogs.
Yeah, and then you said that, and I was like, wait, he's a McElroy? Okay, I recall now that whole shebang, whole sheboingle. Anyway, sorry, go on.
The principal at the school in the live show. Mm-hmm. Anyway, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, the part that bothers me the most, like frustrates me the most, is actually like in the first scene where Trent gets framed for like the food fight, which is ridiculous.
Not even framed. If it was framing, at least it would be understandable. But he's just like, you have Jello detention.
Through things, it's ridiculous. But I guess he did throw him from like Trent's tray. And if all the food's gone from Trent's tray, it can kind of look suspect.
But he literally said that Trent was holding it in his hand.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, what is it you're holding in your hand, Mr. Dwight? Lime Jello. Detention.
But
which actually, now that you pointed out, should have been the perfect evidence that he hadn't been throwing his Jello, because he still had it.
But what bothers me is Mr. Hawthorne being like, I heard you were an excellent Jello thrower. And I'm like, that is, how did it come to that? How did anyone think that is what you said?
The thing that I don't get about Dr. Hawthorne, the thing that's always annoyed me about this episode is the fact that he would give detention over top of something as academic as an audition for a Philharmonic orchestra.
Yeah, I feel like most teachers would just be like, okay, you're going to be in detention a different day.
It's not like, oh, I had booked a private room at the arcade to go play all these video games. Like, he's actively working against someone's intellectual pursuits of a very high degree of fine arts, which is quite against the purpose of detention. Also, if I were Trent, and, like, here's the thing. Let's be real and practical. If I was Trent...
You would not go to detention.
And what I needed to do was hinged crucially on this one day where I needed to be at the audition. I would just skip the detention, do the audition. It's not like they can stop you, and then face the consequences of it after the fact. What are they going to do? Double detention, triple detention? You're already in the orchestra now, or not, but you don't have to worry about it. Your audition's over. Now you can face the consequences.
That makes a lot of sense. That's good. The only thing is, Dr. Hawthorne would have died.
Possibly, but Trent didn't know that.
That's true.
I'm sure the show wouldn't let them do that, because they'd be like, no, it's wrong for Trent to skip detention, but he was wrongfully accused anyways, and he's going to have to face worse consequences after the fact. He's doing it for a good thing that he's doing. Like, that is 100% what I would have done in that circumstance.
Wrong, right, wrong, right.
Wrong, right.
Wrong, right.
I mean, arguably, it is potentially, you could argue, a wrong right. It's a gray right. And just like I said before, the fact that Trent is unable to plead his case at all, that Dr. Hawthorne has so little respect for his students, so as to hear them out for 10 seconds, excuse me, is the thing that really angers me here. Like, the fact that Trent
I feel like it's really unrealistic when it comes to how Dr. Hawthorne treats his students, but I have known teachers who are like that, is the thing.
Yeah, the horror stories I've seen online about.
No, I had like a teacher this past semester that treated students like that.
Oh yeah, that's true. Like, the fact that Trent literally saved his life aside, this is the second time, like I'll say in the next review, the second time we've seen Dr. Hawthorne is absolutely unwilling to entertain the notion that someone else is right for a fraction of a second, unless it's someone with authority who is presenting it, referring back to way before in Faster Than a Speeding Ticket with Cody Carper. And that is why I hate Dr. Hawthorne's character. Because it's not because he is harsh on students, it is because he does not respect them as individuals at all.
I'm really glad that he's only in 3 episodes. But I do think that he works as a character in the
as an antagonist,
as like an antagonistic force. And I think that like in this episode, the fact that like things worked out for him and he was like inadvertently helped is kind of strong, because like of course you want to help someone who you like, but like also love your enemies and stuff like that. Like if Trent was like, oh no, my friend's in danger, I need to go save them from bees, and be like, oh no, this person I hate is in danger, I need to go help them.
Well, yeah, it's like what Jesus said. He's like, you know, you love your friends, big whoop. Everyone loves their friends. That's easy. Loving your enemies, that's hard. Yeah, no, it's like Blackard and, you know, Bennett Charles, all those guys, they're all the big bads of Odyssey. But Dr. Hawthorne is the Umbridge of Odyssey.
He is, but I don't think he's as bad as Umbridge.
But that is the role that he fills, even as a teacher.
Reasons. He is very similar to Umbridge in a bunch of ways, though, from Harry Potter, I will admit.
Maybe the similarity would be more if he was allowed to be in more than 3 episodes.
The similarity would be more if he actually flat out physically abused the students and did like a whole bunch of other terrible stuff. And actually like caused, like worked towards killing students and stuff like that. And actually did attempt to kill students.
Yeah, I get it, Victoria.
So, yeah.
This episode confirms Marvin's birthday is in December, since Whit says it is January, and then Marvin later says his birthday was last month. And this episode did come out in January, and he says it's January. That makes sense. Unlike some other episodes.
I knew you were going to say that.
I really like, it's not the main theme of this episode, but Whit's point about the difference between hoping for something from God and trusting that he's still going to do it, like beyond the main lesson of not being able to see God's long play and stuff, which is also a very important, ever relevant lesson that we've done tons of times. But yeah, I really like the way he does that, you know, because that is something we do, like misunderstanding what it means to like trust for something and be like, no, you asked for it. But trusting means like it looks like it's not going to happen. You still think that it's going to happen. Sometimes I think about, as you said before, how gruesome that would have been if Trent hadn't gone to detention and then someone had just found Dr. Hawthorne dead and like inflamed in his car, surrounded by Rodney's very incriminating bees. They probably would have caught Rodney, and then he would have gone away for a lot longer than he did after Darkness Before Dawn or after Green Eyes and Yellow Tulips. especially since he's like 30 years old in this episode, probably.
Yeah, I was thinking, like, he keeps on picking on Trent, but how many years has he been at this school?
Yeah,
Trent's like a super genius.
Ever since Isaac
Also,
the Courageous
Trent has
in
glasses.
album
I
7.
forgot about that. Did you
Okay.
remember that?
I mean, I would have assumed he's a nerdy character. Of course he has glasses.
That's not necessarily true.
Yes,
okay.
it is.
We gotta wrap it up. What's your final rating?
Wait. There's one thing in the guide about this. Sound bites. The script for the food fight scene of A Glass Darkly indicated that it should sound like, quote, The Lord of the Rings with Jell-O. Some of the sounds of Jell-O splats and squishes were vegetables originally recorded for the Mudball War in The Buck Starts Here, album 33. Later in the episode, Wooten Bassett showed his creative side by inventing a riding vacuum cleaner for Marvin Washington. See album cover art, which has nothing to do with sound design, but they put it in here for some reason.
Okay. What's your final rating?
I'm gonna give this... I'm trying not to take it personally. Be objective. 4.5.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. I know, it's a well-done lesson. The B-plot, they play off different aspects of the story. There's kind of two themes going on here. The thing with Marvin and Bart, their parts together and individually are quite funny. And, yeah, points off for Dr. Hawthorne being a terrible human being.
I'm gonna give it a 3.7 because even though I love the subplot in this episode and I think there are some really great things in it, it is a frustrating episode and very emotionally taxing in various ways. And if injustice bothers you, you're probably not going to be feeling that hot after listening to it.
It's like it's literally spending spoons to listen to it and just emotionally process it. It is a good point. It is emotionally draining to listen to it.
So, yeah. But
I'm dropping to a 4. You're right.
If you have trouble with emotionally processing, hard to process emotional Odyssey episodes because of something really unjust, I don't recommend listening to it. Or maybe just listen to it once and then never again, because you might not want to ever listen to it again. And I wouldn't really blame you. But yeah, I think Dr. Hawthorne is somewhat of a good character for the role he fills.
Oh, yeah, I mean, definitely, yeah.
But yeah, I have known people like Dr. Hawthorne, and it sucks. There's no other way to put it. It just really sucks.
Do you ever wonder if he is the Dr. Hawthorne being mentioned in The Invisible Dog about Lester? What's I asked my psychologist friend, Dr. Hawthorne, about him, and this is what he said.
No, I think it's a
Lester.
Different guy. I don't think they'd let him have a psychology degree. He would just make everyone cry.
Maybe that's why he's so good at hurting people.
He's doing it on purpose.
Because he knows he's trained. He is trained in manipulating and psychologically abusing children.
He's trained in the art of tough love, which is why he didn't let Trent into the orchestra. If Trent had gone into the orchestra, he wouldn't have become a cool dog.
That's true. That was God's real plan in all this.
Yeah, I know. I was trying not to say it in an earlier episode because it feels like it's almost as bad as the transmuter, except for at least the cool dogs are mentioned in 3 episodes, and they actually appear in 2 episodes. I think
they were mentioned in when Marvin came back in An Unfair Game.
Oh, never mind then. 4 episodes.
The kid was playing the drums in the Philippines, and Marvin's like, I used to have a band called the Cool Dogs.
Yeah, Las Frescos.
And I was like, Las Pears Frescos.
Yeah, Las Pears Frescos. I think it means the cold pears.
I think it's the fresh pears.
But yeah, that is all I have to say about that episode. I think it's good to review episodes that are difficult for us to talk about every now and then because we didn't like them.
We make it sound so much more dramatic than it is. Like, it's really emotionally tough to talk about this, you know? It's a very traumatic experience.
It's not. It's just this episode makes me upset.
I know, me too. It's just the phrasing of it's funny. So what are we doing next time, Victoria? We recorded half of it last night.
Okay. We're going to be doing the last 2 episodes of Album 65.
And?
The Album 65 review.
Yeah, talking about Not What I Expected and Divided We Fall. Ominous.
Now we gotta go. We gotta go. We're 4 minutes late.
Okay, thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. Until next time, I've been Tim Francis, also known as Leonard Melsner.
And I gotta go. Bye.
Goodbye.